It is time for another edition of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. As always, joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. here to break down UFC Vegas 108. Goes down tomorrow inside the UFC Apex. We're about to get on a little run here in the UFC Apex. Of course, we had two fighters notably miss weight here earlier on today. Tresean Gore missing weight by 3.5 pounds. He's been fined 25% of his purse. And then Estevan also missed weight by 4 pounds for a flyweight matchup. Fined 25%. I'm amazed he didn't have to give up more of his purse in terms of that one. Pete, how's it going, man?
What's going on, Jason? Yeah, I can't stand it when I see professionals missing weight. Never mind missing weight by large amounts, looking horrible on the scales. It's something I always took pride in, was making weight. Mm-hmm. And I was always happy when everybody on the same fight card made weight too. I just felt like just a ton of pride. Like, all right, we got a bunch of professionals here. Amateur hour's over. So, yeah, obviously I hate it when I see all these guys missing weight.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's, of course, this fight card has gone through changes. Of course, Tatsutaro initially was taking on 𝗵𝗲𝘳, which obviously would have been a huge matchup for him at 125 pounds. Hong Park stepping up to take this matchup. He was supposed to fight next week against 𝗵𝗲𝘁𝘀. Also, Austin 𝗵𝗲𝘁 lost his opponent. He gets a replacement opponent. Of course, Austin 𝗵𝗲𝘁, a guy that I've known for a couple years, kind of has, I would say, when we talk about the regional side of mixed martial arts, Pete, Austin 𝗵𝗲𝘁 took a different approach than we see a lot of fighters, where he took the approach of kind of like, it's in a way 𝗖𝗄𝗄𝘁𝑻, where, yeah, you could have signed with the UFC a lot sooner than you did, but the 𝗵𝗲𝘁's camp mindset was we want to get some time on the regional scene, and it really started to get to that point where he just, it was getting tough to find opponents because no one wanted to go up against them. So kind of taking a different approach there. Of course, as always, appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode of Fight HQ. If you happen to be watching us live here on a Friday night, the PFL fight card is currently going on. I put it over our Discord channel earlier on today. I do have one bet on the PFL. It is a two-fighter parlay. I parlayed Movlid and 𝗏𝗏𝘁 together. Got that at plus 227. So we'll see if that one does come in. I was a little surprised to see Movlid as a slight betting underdog there against Jesus Pinedo. Obviously, no surprise that 𝗏𝗏𝘁 is a favorite against Logan Story, which, either 𝗏𝗏𝘁 is going to go out there and most likely knock out Logan Story, or he's going to get grapple left. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, look, Logan Story, very talented wrestler. He might be the 2025 version of John Fitch.
It's a great one. Yeah, he definitely is. And 𝗏𝗏𝘁 surprised me, right? Because Jason Jackson's a guy that I have a ton of respect for. I think he's absolutely legit. I've been singing his praises for a very long time. So when I think he was a slight underdog, or the money line was very close against 𝗏𝗏𝘁, and I was like, dude, this is value on Jason Jackson. I mean, who has this 𝗏𝗏𝘁 fought? You know what I mean? And I was wrong, and he went out and he showed out and he put on a good performance and looked good and impressed me enough for me to say, yeah, I think he beats Story tonight. Just obviously needs to defend takedowns because they're going to be coming early and often. Stick and move, be strong, and I think that he can wear down Logan Story into a later round finish. But yeah, I'm excited to see if 𝗏𝗏𝘁 can continue the momentum, because he's definitely been the story of the PFL tournament, as you and I were talking.
And Samuel in the chat mentioned the fact that not only does the PFL going on, of course, that fight card's on ESPN. One Championship has a card going on Amazon Prime if you have an Amazon Prime subscription. Of course, I mentioned about the Discord channel. Link to the Discord channel is in the show notes of this episode. Of course, totally free to join in there. Of course, everyone kind of sharing their opinions. I know we've already got some questions for the show. We'll get to the questions at the end of the show. And of course, Pete, you got your Patreon page that people can get to the Pete algorithm. Is that what we're calling? Do we call that? Or, I mean, are we going back to old school, the heat sheet? I mean,
I like the heat sheet. Remember the heat sheet? Yeah, I think we're just going to call it the heat sheet, man, because on the Patreon, I'm just trying to give everybody a glance at, comparing fighters, comparing odds, comparing data, and trying to see where there could be value, where there could be mistakes on betting lines. And you can see from, listing the odds to the salaries to their career win percentage, their record in the last 5, the data projection, the pace rating, the fight pace, the metrics of the youth advantage and the height and reach advantage, strength of schedule, strength of their wins, striking ratio, striking differential. So, I mean, I have a bunch of data on the Patreon, and if you look at it, I know a ton of people that literally just plug and play the pace ratings, the pace attached to each fighter. I know people that use those as projections. Instead of using the data projections, they go and they just use the pace rating. So, or maybe you want to go and use the strength of schedule because that's the only thing you care about. That's a way to get different as well. So, I'm happy with the Patreon and looking to continue to add to it and in hopes of turning things around because let's be honest, Jason, I mean, it has not been a great couple weeks for me, at least. I don't know about you, but it's just been a very rough patch. And I think all analysts alike or all, MMA fans for the most part have been struggling from betting lines and from targeting it with maybe not DFS so much, but definitely with betting of big favorites flopping, fights and fighters that are in layup spots, just laying an egg, and just some weird shit happening in MMA and like weirder than normal. So very, very volatile, very frustrating. But, at the end of the year, things tend to normalize. So I definitely think some normal cards are in the cards, especially starting this week. It's been underdogs galore, a little too much for my liking because, man, it has been very frustrating.
Yeah, and by the way, Samuel, I appreciate that. Your super chat will get to your questions talking about ranking the tiers in terms of it. And let's kind of get into talking about game theory here. When we're looking at DFS here for UFC Vegas 108, we got a ton of fighters in the 9K range. Not a lot of fighters in that 8K range. Looking at some salary projections in terms of that. As I kind of piggyback a little bit of what you were just saying there. I mean, to me, 2025 in the year in the UFC has been trying to figure out, which hot prospect that is a massive betting favorite because, I know we're in a sport where it's a lot of recency bias, but I just can't recall a year in mixed martial arts where we saw so many big favorites. And, I'm talking about 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1. I mean, hell, Austin Bashi is a 9-1 betting favorite. Of course, he was supposed to take on Francis Marshall, gets a new opponent here. But like that to me is like one of the things of, looking at some of these fighters, like, a guy that I would tell you that I'm super high on. I love his striking ability is 𝗵𝐵, but like there is also that concern of like who's gonna crap out on this card.
I know, and then like you get yourself in trouble because you're searching for the underdog. You're searching to like find any little reason to back these plus 300, plus 400 underdogs, and it's just like it doesn't always happen, and it's just been super odd and super weird. There is a fighter priced as a big favorite in Rinya Nakamura, who I've been very impressed with from like a skill set standpoint. But as far as putting together everything under the lights, not just working on his striking, I want to see this guy mixing everything together because his wrestling's top notch. He laid an egg in his previous performance, and he's still a minus 400 favorite. So, and then you take into consideration the weight misses. Rafael Esteban missing weight. Looking like several fighters did have some rough weight cuts. Tresean Gore missed weight. Nora Cornell, she made it, but man, by narrow margins. So, I mean, we'll have to see because those definitely play a part when we're breaking down film, especially on a Friday. So I'm excited to see if you agree or disagree with me here.
Yeah, I mean, there is some, especially on the betting side, I think there's some lines that are a little wider than I would expect it. And, and I'll say this, I mean, I'm probably going to be prop game hunting tomorrow when I wake up in the morning and I start kind of really taking a deep dive into, okay, what bets am I placing on this fight card? Because I can tell you this, where I get in trouble is when I start betting during the fights and not live betting. Live betting to me is one of the best. I will say there's one fight on this card that I think could be a very good live betting opportunity after round one. We'll get into that fight as we go on, but but they're also I think the fighters in the 8K range may be the key to success to taking down tournaments tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just I'm so frustrated. It's making me question myself on a lot of
Mm-hmm.
spots, and I know better than that because then when you don't trust yourself or trust your gut and you get away from it and you start doing something different, it's like, oh man, I should have just stuck with my initial read. So, the 8K salaries, lacking makes it very, very weird. We have no 8,500, no 83, no 82, no 8,000, and no 7,900. So very,
Mm-hmm.
very weird week for me. I mean, I usually hate the 8,200, 8,000 fight, but somewhere in the middle, I like to find or target a fighter that I'm a little bullish on. So, got to do something different this week.
And also, when you look at that 6K range, 4 fighters in that 6K range, who you want to get to, kind of some interesting ownership projections out there on some of those fighters. Kind of interesting to see how much people are getting to those. But we'll get into all these fights as we do go forward throughout the show. Of course, if you got a question, you can line that up in chat and we'll answer. If you're watching us after the fact and you got a question, you can leave it in the YouTube comments, or you can hit Pete or myself up over on X. I'm not as active as I once was on X, but I do get notifications on my phone when I do get a mention. So, let's just say the phone notifications have been a little crazy the past week for me. It's been a crazy week for me, and of course that's a lot of things kind of going on in my life. That's why I had to kind of postpone the show until Friday. Got a lot of things going on, to work life, personal life. So appreciate everyone who takes time to watch our show or listen to our show, whatever that may be. Let's get right into it, Pete. Of course, the main event, it was supposed to be a really interesting matchup at 125 pounds, and it seems like this has become a little bit of a storyline the last month or so. We saw it with Joshua Van, then we saw it with who was it last week that stepped up, and basically we've said it's a win-win situation because you're if you go out there, you get the win, all of a sudden you're in the top of that division. But Hyun-Sung Park stepping up to take Amir Albazi's spot here against Tatsu Tara.
Marcus McGee.
Marcus McGee, yeah. Park +2 is a +280 betting underdog, -370 for Tatsu Taira, who's 9,200 DK, $20 on FanDuel. Park 7,000 on DK and $13 on FanDuel. And Pete, you know what? This is one of those things of it's a massive step up in competition for Park, but man, when the UFC gives you this phone call, I mean, he was going to massive step up in competition, for the fight against 𝗍𝗲𝘁𝘀 that he was initially scheduled for. But this is a major step up in competition when you look at who he's been fighting in the UFC to this point in comparison to Tatsu Tara.
Yeah, personally, I think it's a massive step up in competition, right? Like Hyun-Sung Park has looked very good, very skilled. He hasn't lost yet. He hasn't tasted defeat. So the confidence is something that, Tatsuro Taira has to be careful of because, Hyun-Sung Park really believes in his skill set, and he should. The kid is really, really good. He has a solid pace. He has a .98 striking differential in comparison to Tatsu Taira's .3 striking differential. The volume is definitely more in the Hyun-Sung Park corner, 9.28 strikes attempted per minute, whereas Tatsuro Taira 4.98. But it's mainly because Tatsuro Taira is just a very patient striker, waiting for the perfect opportunity to grapple, whereas I would say Hyun-Sung Park forces the hand a little bit more with the grappling, whether it's a perfect entry or not. Both of them attempt a ton of takedowns. Tatsuro Taira 10.34 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes, whereas Hyun-Sung Park 9.6. So tons of volume in the wrestling and grappling, and typically when we have two wrestlers or grapplers facing off, it tends to be a kickboxing match. I'm interested to see if that is what is going to happen, or if they are going to test each other in their strengths, because I would love to see grappling sequences between both of them. I think, that Hyun-Sung Park being so confident can actually give Tatsuro Taira some issues. We've seen Tatsuro Taira be on the mat at times, be on bottom, get reversed, get put in a bad or deep submission. You know what I mean? So it's like I worry that Hyun-Sung Park just comes out hot out the gates and gives Tatsuro Taira like you know, an issue early on. But I do think that this is a tremendous step up in competition, and one where Tatsuro Taira he's well versed. He's a guy that just faced one of the best fighters within the division in Brandon Royval. And yes, he did lose a split decision, but he did go 25 minutes. And I tell you what, those 25 minutes are the most valuable minutes that he's had throughout his entire career. He was a former undefeated prospect, and now he's 16-1. But in that 25-minute fight against Brandon Royval, he had to dig deep. He got put in some bad spots. He got overwhelmed. He got hurt. And then he got outworked. And it proved that experience is the difference maker. And I don't see anything different here. I do think that Tatsuro Taira is going to pick up a win here. I think that he could deal with some adversity early from the hot prospect in Hyung-Sung Park. I think it's going to be action galore, right? We have flyweights, and I would love to see grappling situations and tons of takedowns and reversals and sweeps, and sit back and say, "Wow, this fight's awesome! I'm excited. I'm enjoying this." But I think that Tatsuro Taira will start to get out ahead. He does a fantastic job at getting to the back, a fantastic job at threatening stuff. I would say that Hyung-Sung Park, he's a very talented fighter, but I think that he's going to meet his match in this one. The odds are a little wide, and I think it's reflective of how Hyung-Sung Park is stepping up on short notice, but I do agree that they are favoring the correct fighter in Tatsuro Taira. It's just, do I agree with the number they're at? I don't know. I think there's obviously value on Hyung-Sung Park, priced at 7,000 compared to Tatsuro Taira at 9,200. I don't hate getting to Hyung-Sung Park at all from an underdog standpoint, because let you know a little insight. I'm not big on underdogs this week, but the pick will be Tatsuro Taira here. I just don't know what type of fight we're going to get. Are we going to get two grapplers that choose to strike, or are we actually going to see grappling sequences? So Tatsuro Taira will be the pick for me. I think that he will start to take over as the fight goes on. And for DFS contests, honestly, I don't know if Jason disagrees with me. I definitely know several people in our Discord will disagree with me, but I don't mind stacking the fight. And the main reason I don't mind stacking the fight is because I don't like a lot of underdogs, and flyweights tend to go long. There could clearly be a finish here that, Tatsuro Taira and Hyung-Sung Park have a good amount of finishes for the division, but more often than not, flyweights tend to go long. So I'm going to be looking to get exposure to both sides here, but Tatsuro Taira is the pick.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Tara pick there in terms of this one. I mean, to me, the biggest concern I have with Park is just this massive step up in competition. When you look at UFC debut, winning against Choi, then it's Shannon Ross, and then it's Carlos Hernandez. That's the thing that concerns me. In terms of stacking a fight, I'm not big on stacking fights, but I understand where you're coming from in terms of that. Looking at the betting side of the equation, Tara by decision at plus 240, I don't mind that. I mean, look, if you want to take a little shot here, if you want to get some, obviously it's plus 100, but the inside the distance on Tara at plus 100 is another one I don't mind getting to as well. When you look at the FanDuel side of the equation, 20 and 13. Park maybe if you're just looking for a value play, maybe Park is something there, especially if you think this fight is going to go a little late. Then our co-main event is 𝗵𝗂 taking on Duncan. 𝗵𝗂 comes in as a minus 220 betting fair, plus 180 for Chris Duncan, who is 7,200 on DK, $13 on FanDuel. 𝗵𝗂 9,000 on DK and $18 on FanDuel. Both these guys 4-1 in the UFC here, and this is one of those fights, Pete, that I think people might be looking at Chris Duncan a little bit.
Yeah, I think people will get to Chris Duncan, and mainly because he's a massive fighter for the division. Very, very physical fighter. One where he keeps pulling off victories, whether I think he's going to or not. He has a year on Mateusz Rebecki and 8 inches in the height plus reach department. Very similar strength of schedule for both of them. A little bit more pace than 𝗵𝗂, and that's typically because 𝗵𝗂 slows down in the third round. He did go up against one of the best pace pushers in the world, and 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝘀𝘀, and he passed that test. But man, it was almost really bad for him in that fight. So this is one where I think if 𝗵𝗵𝘁 goes out there and shoots a sloppy double leg and leaves his neck out there, he could get guillotined. Everybody against Chris Duncan, for whatever reason, chooses to shoot on him, and then they get guillotined. So I would imagine 𝗵𝗵𝘁 is aware and prepared for that, or at least, not keeping his head on the outside. The strikes attempted is so damn close, it makes me question the odds. I mean, listen to this, Jason. 9.79 strikes attempted for 𝗵𝗵𝘁 per minute, 9.33 for Chris Duncan. Obviously Chris Duncan's striking defense is not nearly as good as 𝗵𝗵𝘁's, but volume alone, the volume's similar. The takedowns are also similar. 5.12 takedowns attempted for 𝗵𝗵𝘁 over 15, 9.5 for Chris Duncan. So definitely more, but he's a little bit more inefficient. So if you're looking at the takedowns landed per 15 minutes, 𝗵𝗵𝘁 3.84, 75% takedown accuracy. Chris Duncan, a little bit more volume, less efficiency, 4.1 takedowns per 15 minutes, 43% accuracy. So all that being said, Duncan is definitely the busier guy comparing apples and apples here. So like strikes and wrestling, Chris Duncan is busy, and I worry about him kind of working his way back into the fight if he isn't finished already. Can he deal with the power of 𝗵𝗵𝘁? That's something that we're not too sure of, because I've seen Chris Duncan get hit far too often on the Contender Series. I've seen Chris Duncan get kind of manhandled against Manuel Torres. Manuel Torres is an absolute freak, but still, and 𝗵𝗵𝘁's a little tank. So I'm interested to see these guys clash. The next little narrative here is that these guys are training partners. So it's just a weird dynamic. I don't know if they're going to go out there and have a sparring match, or if they're really going to look and try to take each other's heads off. I mean, even the striking ratio, which is taking the strikes landed per minute and dividing the strikes absorbed, 1.15 for Chris Duncan, 1.13 for 𝗵𝗵𝘁. So slightly better for Chris Duncan. And then the striking differential is identical, 0.57 for both of them. So good God, it's a little tough. I see Chris Duncan as being one of the best underdogs out there if he can survive the early storm. So at 7,200, I don't mind getting to him at all. Good strength of schedule as well. So, but for me, 𝗵𝗵𝘁 really impressed me with that 𝗵𝗵𝘁-𝗲𝗏 fight, and enough for me to pick him outright. But I'm hesitant. Like, I wouldn't have him a part of parlays. I'm just picking him from a straight up standpoint. But for DFS, I do think that this fight is a little interesting, because when the going gets tough, maybe Chris Duncan can prevail. But 𝗵𝗵𝘁 may just end it before Chris Duncan can even get himself back into the fight. So I'm picking Mateusz 𝗵𝗵𝘁 here at 9,000. But like I said, I like both sides.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those matchups that I think you do kind of concern of, just because of what has happened with Duncan with these submission wins, guillotine submission wins last two matchups, and you do wonder, does 𝗵𝗵𝘁 maybe go for a takedown, maybe get caught in one of those guillotines there. I would say on the betting side, the line that I really do like is I like the 𝗵𝗵𝘁 wins via decision at plus 300. I tend to believe more times than not, I think this does go 15 minutes between these two guys, but I think it's one of those fights when you're talking about you're sitting down, whether it's tonight, tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, as you're finalizing your DFS lineups. I think this is one of those fights you really got to kind of circle and say, this is a fight I need to get to, just because I think it could be a potential one of those fights that more times than not is optimal in terms of that. Next up, we got a matchup between Brenner and 𝗵𝗵𝘁. 𝗵𝗵𝘁's a minus 270 betting favorite. He's 9,100 DK, $19 on FanDuel. Brenner plus 220 betting underdog. He's priced at 7,100 DK and $11 on FanDuel. And Pete, this is one of those fights that look, we're not going to BS you here. This ain't a great fight card on paper. Let's just call it what it is. It's horrible. But this is one of those fights that I feel like could steal the show.
Yeah, I mean, you have an absolute dog in Elvis Brenner, and then you have 𝗉𝗏𝘁, who's a dog as well, but definitely not having to come from behind as often as Elvis Brenner. 𝗉𝗏𝘁's superpower, very, very dangerous. Brenner is kind of like, I can't believe that he did that to 𝗃𝗀𝘁𝗲𝗄𝗏𝘁, got smoked early, came back, 𝗃𝗀𝘁𝗲 gassed, and then Brenner just didn't give up on himself and just put it on him. So, I'm interested to see how these guys clash. You have Brenner 1 year younger, 3 inches in height and reach department. The pace rating is ridiculous for 𝗉𝗏𝘁 in comparison to Brenner, and Brenner could become a punching bag for the early portions of this fight. And honestly, I think that it could result in a quick finish, not like a 1 minute finish, but like a round 1, round 2 finish. So I think that Esteban 𝗉𝗏𝘁 is absolutely legit. I love his hands. His combinations are good. He switches stances. He head kicked Terrence McKinney. When I'm looking at the striking ratio, I like him even more. 1.36 in comparison to Brenner's 0.75. That's a big difference in that one. Striking differential for 𝗉𝗏𝘁 2.16 compared to Elvis Brenner, who's actually in the negative here, 1.31. So he's getting hit more often than he's landing, Elvis Brenner. So I don't like seeing that at all. Significant strikes landed per minute, 8.08 for 𝗉𝗏𝘁, 3.99 for Brenner, which means that 𝗉𝗏𝘁 is attempting about 18.8 per minute, whereas Brenner is attempting 8.4. And it's because Brenner's getting lit up like a Christmas tree. And honestly, this is what I think is going to happen. I mean, like, 𝗉𝗏𝘁 he has this like Nasrat Haqparast style about him. And yes, he just had a good close fight with him. But like ton of volume, but also has that death touch when he sits down on his punches. So I think this could be an accumulation of damage in result of a corner stoppage or doctor stoppage. And 𝗉𝗏𝘁 goes out there and just looks like $1 million, because I don't mind the plus 210, but Brenner's constantly down on scorecards, constantly down, getting hit, getting hurt, getting dropped. I don't know what to expect. He's coming off of terrible losses. Yes, they're both 3-2 in their past 5 fights, but even when I'm comparing their strength of schedule, the strength of 𝗉𝗏𝘁's wins are a little bit better than Brenner. I just like 𝗉𝗏𝘁. I like him a lot, and I do think that he has the skills to put away Brenner, despite Brenner's toughness. So give me 𝗉𝗏𝘁 here at 9,100, and one of my favorite plays of the week, truthfully.
And something to note about this matchup, it was actually initially scheduled to take place back in November of 2023. Esteban is the one who pulled out of that matchup. And, I think to me, if you're looking at the underdog here, what concerns me is, can he handle the volume that Esteban's going to bring in this matchup? If he can slow the pace down in this fight, I think he does have a chance to pull off the upset there. I would say this, the Esteban wins inside the distance at plus 135 is a number that does stick out to me. You can get a little bit more at plus 165 by 𝐾𝐬𝐬𝐜, which is likely the path that he's going to go in there. But sometimes I'm just saying, what, let me not chase that little extra dough. Let me just take the dough that I feel a little more confident is going to come in terms of that one. Next up, we got a female matchup. It's Karol Rosa taking on Nora. Nora plus 155 betting underdog. She's 7,600 DK, $15 on FanDuel. Rosa is a minus 185 betting favorite. She's 8,600 on DK and $16 on FanDuel. Look, let's just say this. Karol Rosa, she has 11 UFC fights, Pete. She has gone the distance in all 11 of those matchups. But the one thing that you do, I think, when I look at Karol Rosa in terms of this one, it is the striking volume.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is an interesting fight. I think that, Nora Cornwall she's a Muay Thai champ. She's very, very good. Low volume, big power, questionable ground game, just good in the clinch, though. But she is going up against a very high volume fighter in Karol Rosa. So, when I'm comparing the pace, I don't like seeing Karol Rosa here at 8.33 on my pace rating in comparison to Nora Cornwall at 4.79. So, nearly double the pace. And, a lot of times activity and just staying busy wins you minutes in a fight. You just got to avoid getting hit with that big shot. It could be a low likelihood shot. You go out there, you win more minutes, you put more out there for the judges to see. You're active, you're initiating, you're leg kicking, and that's what 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽 does a lot. She does a ton of leg kicks. Surprisingly, she's still younger with all the experience. 5 years in the youth advantage department, 2 inches in the height plus reach department for Nora Cornell. What I thought was interesting, and I actually thought it was going to be flipped, the strength of schedule for 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽 sits at 65.81 win percentage, whereas Nora Cornell, despite having not as many fights at all, sits at 68.91. So despite being relatively new to MMA, if you want to compare the two, she has a tougher strength of schedule of her opponent's wins. And throughout their wins, 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽 sits at 61 and Nora Cornell sits at 64.65. The striking ratio is interesting though, Jason, because when you're looking at it, like we talk about the volume of 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽, attempting 11.3 strikes per minute, whereas Cornell attempting 5.68. But the striking ratio for Rosa sits at 1.28. Meanwhile, Cornell sits at 1.6. So, Cornell, she may not throw that often, but when she does throw, she's very effective and her defense is good. She's avoiding shots. She's, just being wise in the striking department. So, you can have all the volume in the world, but if you're empty with your volume, like what are we talking about? We're judging the fight based on damage. And honestly, this is a situation where I just don't trust women's MMA fighters outside several of them. So when I see minus 175 for 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽, like, yeah, she should win the fight. But I often see her against the cage. I often see her just kind of leg kicking to death. And some judges don't like that. Some judges don't view or value that with any merit whatsoever. So for me, I think that there's good value on Nora Cornell as an underdog sitting there at 7,600. I am still going to pick 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽 to win because I do think that the volume is good. Just the experience is good as well. And if you look at her strength of schedule, of her past 5, she's only 2-3. Meanwhile, Nora Cornell is 4-1. But look at the names of who 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽 has fought. Legitimate competition. Nora Cornell more on the low level within the division, super low level. So take all that with a grain of salt. I think that Nora Cornell and women's MMA fighters in general are always circled on my spreadsheets and always circled within my exposure settings. Because I want to get to them. I just don't trust a lot of them. Very, very volatile. I'm picking 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽 to win still, but I do understand that, Nora Cornell, she's in a very interesting spot at pulling off an upset here at plus 150.
Yeah, I would say one of the things for me was I was kind of hoping the DFS ownership would be projected a little under of what 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽 is, because she was because of that striking volume was someone that I was going to look at. But that ownership is a little high there. I mean, this should just tell you. I mean, I mentioned about the fact of all 11 UFC fights have gone the distance. 𝗃𝗀 𝗁𝐽 wins via decision minus 120.
Yeah.
I mean, that's. But look, the reality is, but I mean, of course, hell, who would have thought 𝗃𝗲𝘁'𝘀 went out there and got the knockout last week?
Yeah, I mean, what the hell was that? That was weird. I mean, like I was very that's another situation where maybe the 1 week I had confidence in Amanda 𝗵𝐵os. It's just like, why did I have confidence in her? And she got pinned against the cage. 𝗃𝗀 was very aggressive and like forcing the hand of where this fight's going to take place, and she dictated it, and then she elbowed her right in the orbital, and that's all she wrote. And I was just like, for real? I had all the overs. I had like every which way that fight could go other than 𝗃𝗲 by KO.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. Look, we talk about it every week, in terms of women's MMA, the high probability of the fight going over 2.5 rounds. And also, you got to mention with this fight card being inside the UFC Apex, it is the smaller UFC octagon. It isn't that big octagon that we see for these fight night shows and pay-per-views that are in full-scale arenas. Next up, we got a matchup between Neil Magny and Zaleski dos Santos. Dos Santos comes in here as a minus 185 betting favorite, priced at 8,800 on DK. DK, $17 on FanDuel. For Neil Magny, comes in here as a plus 155 betting underdog. He is 7,400 DK and $14 on FanDuel. This will be the 35th UFC fight for Neil Magny. He's lost back-to-back fights, and of course, things have not gone well for him in his last 6 fights, being 2-4. But let's just talk about who he's fought, Pete. These last 2 losses, Michael Morales and Carlos Prates. Before that, the 2 previous losses were against Gilbert Burns and Ian Gary, and we've kind of talked a little bit about Neil being that G word in the UFC, which is never a term you want titled to your name, and that means you're a gatekeeper. When you look at 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos, he is coming off a second-round loss against 𝗵𝗲 Njokuani, 2-1 in his last 5 matchups. But this is just one of those things, Pete, I just look at and say, are we really now finally seeing the downside of Neil Magny's career, especially the fact of being finished in the first round of his last 2 fights?
Yeah, I tell you what, man, I'm not sold on either one of these fighters. I mean, they're both 2-3 in their past 5, so 40%, win rate in their past 5. You have 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos sitting at a minus 200, and I'm like, okay, why? I don't understand why, and maybe it's because of what you mentioned of how Neil Magny's lost, but if you really go and you look, it's ridiculous the strength of schedule that Neil Magny's been up against. I mean, I'm not convinced that 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos is just going to come in here and dominate Neil Magny. I mean, let's go right here. Phil Rowe, granted that's 2 years ago. Ian Machado Gary, stud. Mike Malott, stud. Michael Morales, stud. Carlos Prates, stud. Okay, let's go over here and let's talk about 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, split decision. Rinat Fakhretdinov, Randy Brown, Zach Scroggin, and 𝗵𝗲 Njokuani. So, to me, there's clearly several good names a part of 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos, but not anywhere of the Neil Magny caliber, in my personal opinion. And then when you take when you take a look at it, it's not that Magny's all that old, Jason. I mean, he still has 1 year in the youth department against 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos, oddly enough. Not only that, he has 11 inches in the height and reach department. I think that he's given problems to plenty of fighters with his range, with how long he is for the division, how he pins his opponents against the cage, is pretty good inside the clinch. Despite being a rangy striker, he actually is the one that initiates a ton of takedowns. I find that to be extremely interesting because he should be the more physical fighter, just because he's massive for the welterweight division. If I look here, 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos probably has a pure BJJ advantage over Neil Magny. A ton of fighters have a pure submission advantage over Neil Magny, but if you do not go out there and utilize takedowns often or with poor efficiency, I'm not going to trust that you're going to do it against Neil Magny. He's a big guy. 0.75 takedowns per 15 minutes landed for 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos with 20% accuracy translates to 3.75 takedowns attempted. So, call it 4 takedowns attempted in the fight, but horrible accuracy. And then we have Neil Magny on the other side, 2.12 takedowns per 15 minutes, 38% accuracy, sits at 5.57 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. And I think that he wins that battle more often than 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos does inside the clinch. I think if Neil Magny stays at range, allows 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos to kick him in the legs, leg kick him, calf kick him, hit him with big shots over the top, Magny can get finished again. And it could be, the beginning of the end, as you mentioned, of all right, we've seen the top for Neil Magny, but I don't know, Jason. I see this is a legitimate fight where he's going up against somebody who's his equal in the age department, equal with experience. He's not going up against a young prodigy or a young prospect. And Neil Magny has, I don't know if he still does, I believe he does, the most wins in the welterweight division. So I see value here on Neil Magny, Jason, truthfully. I know it's an ugly pick, and some people may completely disagree with me and think 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos knocks him out. He knocked out Zach Scroggin. And that's it. That's the only guy he's knocked out in his past 5. And we just saw 𝗲𝗏𝘁 dos Santos, hurt 𝗵𝗲 Njokuani and then get finished. But I don't know, Jason. I'll take the value and take the volume of a Neil Magny here as one of my few underdogs on the slate, and I'm okay if he loses, but I think that he's in a good spot to give some problems to Zaleski dos Santos. So give me Neil Magny slightly.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show that there was a fighter that I think could be a really good live betting opportunity. It's Neil Magny.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get that value, pre-flop, but I almost feel like he may get off to a bad start in the first round, and he may get even a better number come round two. When you look at the props over here, Dos Santos to win inside distance plus 190, plus 325 TKO KO. I would say this, and I mentioned, sometimes you don't want to chase a number. This might be the one I would chase a number at plus 325 for him to win inside the distance. If I really look at Magny, I would probably just play the money line plus 155, but to win via decision plus 260 does stick out to me in terms of that one. Next up, we've got one of the biggest betting favorites on the card. That's 𝗃𝐲𝐻𝗄, who's a minus 450 betting favorite. He's priced at $9,400 DK, $21 on FanDuel. Taking on Danny Silva, who is plus 325. He's $6,800 on DK and $9 on FanDuel. Pete, there are some fighters that we see come into the UFC or Dana White's Contender Series, and maybe things don't go their way the first matchup, and all of a sudden, 2-3 years later, you go, hot damn. And that to me is 𝗃𝐲𝐻𝗄, because people forget he took Gian Silva to a decision on the Contender Series.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for you and I, the most popular example of somebody that we weren't high on that ended up becoming a superstar and ended up becoming a dominant force is Joaquin Buckley. I mean, you and I were very familiar with his game in Bellator, and never saw his career shaping out that the way it did. So when he fought Kevin Holland on short notice, we like Kevin Holland a lot. And then we're like, all right, well, this guy's known for his wrestling. This guy's sitting there taking people down left and right. And then when he starts knocking people out, and he landed the most beautiful knockout in the history of the UFC, I was absolutely surprised. 𝗃𝐲𝐻𝗄 showed incredible skills in the John Silva fight on the Contender Series. And this is one where I actually see them meeting again in the future for the belt or for a title shot. I really think that they are both on an upward trajectory. I think that John Silva is clearly one of the best fighters within the division. And I honestly think that 𝗃𝐲𝐻𝗄 is also. I mean, there was a point where I was downing 𝗃𝐲𝐻𝗄. I was thinking that a veteran could end up spoiling his record or end up, giving him a vet lesson. And I don't know, man. The kid's good. I'm done doubting 𝗃𝐲𝐻𝗄. I think that the hands are legit. I love the pace. I love the volume. I love the accuracy, how he picks his shots. He's 4 years younger than Silva here, but Silva does have 6 inches in the height and reach department, and that's really nothing new for 𝗃𝐲𝐻𝗄. 𝗃𝐻𝗄 is used to being slightly undersized, and I think he uses that to his advantage. I mean, he gets in the pocket. He'll start stringing combinations to the head and to the body, and he's fast. He's fast, man. And the volume from both of these fighters in Silva and 𝗃𝐲𝗄 is exceptional. This is one where if it goes 15 minutes, you could legitimately, Jason, see 𝗃𝐲𝗄 and Silva both putting awesome scores out there if it goes 15 minutes, because Silva's down, and Silva is, he showed his toughness and his volume and his tenacity on the Contender Series as well. Granted, it was not the same caliber of opponent that 𝗃𝐲𝗄 is, or the one that 𝗃𝐲𝗄 fought on the Contender Series. But if you look at their metrics, 6.48 strikes landed per minute for 𝗃𝐲𝗄, 7.36 for Silva. Translates to 12.7 attempted for 𝗃𝐲𝗄, 12.47 for Silva. So, good God, this is going to be a banger. And I just don't know, right? Like, you start seeing these certain fighters that have that death touch about them, like the Ilia Topuria. 𝗃𝐲𝗄 gives me that type of vibes of like, he has that timing, he has the precision, and he does have some power that I think a lot of people can't take. So Danny Silva can match the volume all he wants. How can he handle the shots that 𝗃𝐲𝗄 will put on his chin? So I like Danny Silva, but I actually thought that, when I'm sitting there breaking down Danny Silva fights in the past, I was like, all right. I was big on Danny Silva. I remember I used him as like a flag plant, and I got to a ton of Danny Silva, and I thought that he would crush the slate against 𝗏𝗏 despite the same volume. He only scored 80 in a win. Despite the same volume against Lucas Almeida, he scored 69.9. So I'm like, man, am I overrating this guy, or is it largely due to that Contender Series fight? And I don't know. I just don't see him matching what 𝗵𝗏𝘁'𝘀 is going to bring. This is going to be a striking matchup. I think Danny Silva will look to attempt takedowns to no avail, and 𝗏𝗁𝘁 will go out there and either string together a very impressive decision, or I think he's going to go out there and actually hurt Danny Silva and knock him out. So I don't mind the punt play at 6,800. More of a salary play than anything. I hate almost all the underdogs on this card. So from a score standpoint, I could see Silva doing enough and allowing you to construct a lineup where you can possibly work towards a very, very high score. But the pick is 𝗏𝗁𝘁. I think that he styles on Danny Silva here.
Yeah, I mean, this is just it's one of those things of I really like 𝗵𝗏𝘁𝘀 in this spot, but I just hope that he isn't the fighter this week. I mean, you kind of, in a way, especially with what his price tag is, you hope he's this week's Stephen Nguyen. Because if you did, I mean, so I had a bet on Stephen Nguyen last week. I had a sizable bet on Stephen Nguyen last week, and to win by TKO KO. So I'm watching this fight on my phone, and I'm just saying, do not go for a submission. Do not go for a submission.
Bro, when he did you see when he did? And he started going for that arm triangle. I was like, oh, no. Because I didn't bet at that either. I was like, you don't even do that. I had KO1, KO2, KO3. I had them all. But, yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But he didn't get it. But I was waiting for it to ruin everything.
I forget who the ref was in that fight. Did they
Jason
have the
Herzog.
Did Jason Herzog have the over 1.5 round, over 2.5 rounds? Because good
that's
Lord,
what people are saying.
I
I love Jason Herzog, but man, that was not a good call at all. I think he was trying to give the hometown fighter every opportunity to get back into the fight. But I mean, that's not a good record to break. 6-7 knockdowns. That's ridiculous. There's plenty of them that step in, bro. Intervene. The guy doesn't know where he is.
I think Herzog is one of the best referees in the game. I truly believe, when we talk about top 3, top 4 referees in this game, Jason Herzog is in there. But I also look at the corner going, do you give a crap about your fighter?
No. You care about the opportunity,
It's one of those things that sometimes you see things in a sport, and and unfortunately, I think it's I don't know if culture is the right way to put it, but I think MMA is very unlike boxing, where a boxing trainer is more willing to throw in the towel. Even though when you read the unified rules, there is no rule about the towel. But I've talked to plenty of head commissioners, referees. They say, someone throws in the towel, we're honoring it. I mean, I can only think of, I remember Nick Diaz was throwing in the towel as Josh Thompson was knocking out his brother. And I feel like there's one other opportunity I remember, at least in the UFC aspect, that I've seen someone throw in the towel. I want to say there was someone in Bellator that got the thrown towel. I want to say maybe someone Douglas Lima was fighting.
Probably from all the damn leg kicks.
I'm almost thinking maybe in Rick Hahn's corner and the TriStar corner. For some reason that sticks out in my mind, but just something we don't see happen there. Next up, we got Nakamura taking on Fletcher. Nakamura, sizable betting fair here. He's minus 450, price at 9,300 DK, $20 on FanDuel. Fletcher, he's a plus 325 betting underdog. He is 6,900 on DK and $10 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so this is a situation where Rinya Nakamura is a fighter that I really like, and one that I was believing the hype significantly. The kid's wrestled forever. He is so legit in the wrestling department. His striking is coming around, right? It's very difficult for a lot of, grapplers or wrestlers to learn how to strike, and or at least to look natural while they do it. And then sometimes there's an overcompensation that happens where these guys are trying to improve their striking so much that they forget their roots, or they catch a knockout, or they hurt somebody and they realize, oh my God, it's so much easier if I just land that shot, and they start falling in love with their hands. And that's what's happened with Rinya Nakamura, and he's still priced as a favorite despite really letting a lot of people, including myself, down in his previous performance. And I didn't think that he was going to go out there and perform terrible against 𝗵𝗵𝗁. As bad as he looked, I think I did pick 𝗵𝗵𝗁 as a big underdog, just because of the experience alone. But this is a situation where like Rinya needs to do some soul searching. If you're an MMA, you should combine all your arts. I don't understand it, man. Like just combine everything. Combine your striking into your wrestling, into your ground and pound, into your jiu-jitsu. Well, like why are we doing separate sports here? Combine it all. And if he does go out there and combine it all, this is an easy win over Nathan Fletcher, because Fletcher is okay playing jiu-jitsu off of his back. He's okay getting taken down and grounded. But Rinya's got to be very careful because the jiu-jitsu skill set is significantly different here. Fletcher's jiu-jitsu is absolutely legit. Rinya can easily get triangled or armbarred from guard. Fletcher can sweep, get on top, and then when you have a top caliber wrestler on his back, what do often? They turn to their belly and expose their backs. And I can honestly see Nathan Fletcher getting Rinya Nakamura in some bad spots. I think the odds are wrong. I think they're extremely wrong. We've already seen Rinya Nakamura not be a -400 or 500 favorite. Yes, this is a winnable matchup, but until he goes out there and proves me that he's a very cerebral fighter who is looking to initiate takedowns, I'm not going to back him as a -400. That doesn't mean I'm going to pick Nathan Fletcher to win here, but I just will have a hands-off approach. I'm picking Nakamura to win because I do think that the big, powerful shots from Nakamura can be enough to win over Nathan Fletcher. The powerful wrestling and top game of Nakamura should be enough to bank some minutes and win some rounds, get some top control. But if Nakamura goes out there basic, doesn't really respect Fletcher's game, I mean, Vera could have caused Nakamura some issues. Fletcher's so much better on the ground. So I'm going to be sprinkling some of my Fletcher exposure because I do think at 6,900, obviously it's slate breaking if he gets a win. And Nakamura is one where he could get a ton of takedowns or a takedown around with a ton of control time. I'm picking Nakamura. I hate the odds. He should win, but he's shown that he is not the most intelligent and he can lose. So how does he respond to losing to 𝗵𝗵𝗁? So I'm excited to see how this fight takes place. I'm picking Nakamura, but if anybody's out there, like, I'm not laying -400. If I had to put money on somebody, I guess I'm going to put it on Fletcher and hope for the best. But I still think that Nakamura wins.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, and we see this plenty of times each and every week on a UFC card where you look at one fighter, say, yeah, they're clearly the favorite, but man, sometimes that line gets a little wide there. This is another one where when you look at the props, you got Nakamura, his win by decision -125. So that tells you how the betting public views that one. Next up, we got Vieira taking on Gore. Of course, Gore missed weight earlier today. The fight is going forward, but that is something to pay attention to tomorrow. When you talk about these two fighters who missed weight, will they actually make it to the octagon tomorrow night? Vieira, a -210 betting favorite. He's priced at 8,900 DK, $18 on FanDuel. Gore, a +175 betting underdog. He's priced at 7,300 on DK and $12 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, I like Rodolfo Vieira in this spot. I don't trust Tresean Gore. Tresean Gore got absolutely destroyed in his previous fight, and it wasn't an easy fight, but I've never been a real Tresean Gore guy. I mean, he's got minimal experience in the UFC, minimal MMA experience to begin with, and Marco Tulio hit him with every combination and made a highlight reel just out of Tresean Gore. So, I mean, Tresean Gore is supposed to be a guy with big power in his hands, good leg kicker, good, good guillotine. But outside of that, he's a low volume guy. The pace rating sits at 5.18 in comparison to Rodolfo Vieira's 8.55. And we've seen Rodolfo Vieira go out there against solid strikers and not look horrible, right? Like Rodolfo Vieira went out there and did go the distance with Chris Curtis. He did land 86 significant strikes against Chris Curtis and did score 39. So, like, Rodolfo is not as bad of a striker as people think that he is. Um, if he can do that to Chris Curtis, I think that he can do that and more against Tresean Gore. I think the confidence that Gore has in his submission ability or in his guillotine, and seeing how Anthony Hernandez was able to finish Rodolfo Vieira is going to give him some false confidence here. The willingness to engage in the grappling. You know, you can threaten the guillotine, of course, but if you really pull guillotine or you look to exchange in some sort of submission sequence against Rodolfo Vieira, trust me, he's going to be a step or two ahead of you. He's going to counter it. He has counters, reversals. He has everything there imaginable. Rodolfo Vieira is one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. And this is a guy that I wasn't all that sold on. But the way that he took down Petrosian, you know, he didn't look all that great against Andre Petroski, but it's because it's like a mirror match. They're both very good grapplers. And Petroski's a big guy. Actually, not only just a good grappler, but a good wrestler, so he can stifle the takedowns of Rodolfo Vieira. My only concern with Rodolfo Vieira is like a lack of urgency sometimes. Like he kind of like works his way, super patient. You know, I want you to go out there and blast double Tresean Gore from the opening bell. Go out there, get on top of him, soften him up with some ground and pound. And then let me tell you, if Rodolfo Vieira does take down his opponents and starts to implement good ground and pound, similar to what American Top Team has been doing to their athletes, to their phenomenal BJJ guys, I think that we can see a very dominant force in the division, truthfully. So Rodolfo Vieira, one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. He's right up there in like a 1-for-1 for me. Like 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝘁 is one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Rodolfo Vieira, one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Granted, they're both pretty hefty favorites, but as far as like what I'm expecting big things from both of them.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at Rodolfo Vieira, I mean, unfortunately, he's going to be very popular on the DFS side of the equation, of course, and we all know what he can do in terms of the grappling with his game there. Plus 140 win, by the way, via submission there tomorrow. Plus 100 to win inside the distance. I mean, if you want to take a little gamble there, plus 1100. But there is something you said right at the beginning of your breakdown, Pete, that I totally agree with. I don't trust Tresean Gore. And
Not
missing and now the missing weight aspect of that's even like that's magnetized to me. You know, I just don't trust the guy in there. So to me, it's either roster Rodolfo Vieira or move on from the fight. I can't trust Tresean Gore in that situation. Next up, we got a match between Klein and Andre. Andre is a minus 150 betting favorite. He's priced at $8,400 on DK, $16 on FanDuel. Of course, he is we have no A300 fighter on DK, A2, 8,000. So he is the lowest guy in the 8,000 range here. Taking on Nick Klein is a plus 125 betting underdog. He's priced at $7,800 on DK and $15 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so this fight's tricky, right? Because we have a guy in Nick Klein who's 6-2 overall, and you have Andre Pulyaev who is 9-3. And Nick Klein, when you go back and you look at his strength of schedule, it's pretty poor. His strength of schedule sits at 59.13, but Pulyaev's strength of schedule sits at 57.83%. So, good God, really bad. And Pulyaev within his wins, 51% win rate, and within Klein's wins, 55.45%. So both terrible strength of schedules, and a pretty binary fight. Like if Pulyaev keeps this on the feet, I think that he clearly beats Nick Klein. If Nick Klein is able to get to the hips of Pulyaev and initiate the grappling or back take, I think that this is a fight for Nick Klein to clearly break the slate at 7,800. Very good grappling upside for Nick Klein, but I'm not in love with his wrestling. I'm more I like his submission. I like his submission selection of how he will chase the back. Not really the most technical guy in the world. I think that he's one of the most low-level fighters on the entire slate. But, like, he jumped on the back of his opponent on the Contender Series. No hooks, very high, and still landed the rear naked choke. And sometimes when it's in, it don't matter if it's right or wrong. If it's in and it works, who's to say anything? So, I think that Nick Klein could struggle here against 𝗵𝗁𝘁𝘀, who's 2 years younger, has 4 inches in the height and reach department. Super small sample size. But we have 𝗵𝗁𝘁𝘀 attempting 6.67 significant strikes per minute, whereas Nick Klein 5.3. And honestly, I just think that the variety of attacks of 𝗵𝗁𝘁𝘀 should be enough to pull off a victory over Nick Klein. I so badly wanted to pick Nick Klein because of how quickly he got that submission win on the Contender Series, but I feel like if he's unable to get that, I think that he's drawing pretty slim here of pulling off a victory. So I think that 𝗵𝗁𝘁𝘀 at 8,400, not the best fight to target for DFS, truthfully. But like, whereas no 83, no 82, no 8,000, no 79. So I'm expecting this fight to be a little bit more popular than normal. This is essentially our 8,200, 8,000 fight of the week. And I will be picking 𝗵𝗁𝘁𝘀 to win, but I'm of course worried about one grappling exchange, one lapse in judgment, and Nick Klein snatches up a submission. So GPP play for Klein for sure, but 𝗵𝗁𝘁𝘀 should be the better minute winner, and he's going to be my selection this week.
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of the pick on that one. I really, Nick Klein, just a guy that just never really been big behind here. And when you look at 𝗵𝗁𝘁𝘀, plus 135 to win inside the distance, plus 175 by TKO KO, plus 1,100 via submission, plus 350 to win via decision. Next up, we got Austin 𝗏𝗁𝘁 take on John Yanis. John Yanis step up here on a short notice here. 𝗏𝗁𝘁 is a 9-1 betting favorite, priced at 9,600 DK, $23 on FanDuel. John, plus 550 betting underdog, 6,600 on DK, $7 on FanDuel. Austin is a guy that I've known for probably 4 or 5 years. Really? But is a guy that, coming out of that Michigan regional scene, ended up leaving Michigan to just get fights on the regional scene. To me, he's a super prospect, but also I do kind of wonder, man, is he that guy this week that really does not do well for us?
Really, I'm interested, right? Like I think that 𝗏𝗁𝘁's very good, like super prospect. And I don't hold a lot over his head for losing to Christian Rodriguez. Like, I'm not, like, he's done that to everybody, like Christian Rodriguez. If you look, he's beaten so many prospects in so many spots. He's beaten Austin 𝗏𝗁𝘁, Isaac Dolgaren, don't agree with that, Cameron Simon, Raul Rosas. The kid is just like game to face any up and comers. And then he loses to some mediocre opposition. But like 𝗏𝗁𝘁, we see the potential. This kid has probably top 3 potential on the entire card. I think that the way the kid is aggressive, his submission skills, he's young. I don't think that he was rushed necessarily. Like when back in the day when Chase Hooper was breaking into the UFC, I watched him and I was just like, the kid's jiu-jitsu is amazing, but outside of that, I'm just not buying super prospect. Like I can honestly see 𝗏𝗁𝘁 becoming a very well-rounded athlete. He kind of reminds me of like Aaron Pico a little bit, of just like potential. Pico obviously loves to box a little bit more, but when Pico does get his wrestling going, like he's so dominant, and that's what Pico I think can do. He can see, like Pico can add the jiu-jitsu, the excellent boxing, the wrestling to fall back on. And being 8 years younger here, 𝗏𝗁𝘁 should look to do it, mix up the arts. This guy Yanis is stepping up on short notice. Hasn't fought horrible competition. If I'm looking at the strength of schedule for both of them, 𝗏𝗁𝘁 sitting at 54.12 win percentage, Yanis sitting at 58.73. But this is a short notice opportunity, so Yanis should come in here very, very hungry. But I think it's 𝗏𝗁𝘁's job to go out there and humble the kid and put it on him and get that win that he's looking for, because I think that 𝐵𝐵𝐁𝐻𝐵 can be very, very good. Winning on the Contender Series, submitting Dorian Ramos, picking up tons of first and second round finishes. I think it's going to be a submission. I think that we're going to see 𝐵𝐵𝐁𝐻𝐵 pick up a round 1 submission. And if it doesn't come with a ton of volume, that 9,600 price tag might be a little rich. But if it does come with some volume, man, we're going to have a first or second round finish. And, 𝐵𝐵𝐁𝐻𝐵 is an awesome piece to really make a stand on this week.
By the way, that submission prop -110 for 𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
I mean, that's where maybe you got to look at what are those round 1, round 2 type props in terms of that one. Next up, we got another fighter who missed weight, and man, it's never good when a flyweight fighter misses weight by 4 pounds. That's really a bad sign here. Esteban missing weight by 4 pounds here, taking on 𝗵𝗵𝗵, a plus 425 betting underdog. He's priced at 6,700 DK, $11 on FanDuel. Rafael on the other side, minus 650 betting favorite. He's priced at 9,500 DK, $22 on FanDuel. Man, Pete, it just scares me when you're talking about a flyweight fighter missing weight by that much.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a flyweight, right? You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. And there's certain guys that will end up putting their careers in bad positions because of their weight management or their weight cutting issues. And the writing's on the wall, right? Rafael Esteban is clearly a guy that is going to have to bump up in weight. He's not going to be a flyweight forever. It's just not going to happen. 7 years younger than Bunes, 1 inch in the height and reach department. Very strong strength of schedule for both of them. Bunes is content to attempt submissions off of his back, and man, when he attempts submissions, you got to be careful. The arm bars that this kid throws up are ridiculously dangerous, and I love it because you could just tell like how quick his hips will go and latch up the arm. Rafael Esteban can't fool around here. You know what I mean? Like he cannot fool around in guard, sitting there. He'll end up getting triangle, he'll end up getting arm barred, he'll end up getting swept, and the clear wrestling advantage is on Rafael Esteban's side, and he can go out there and just be top position, tons of control time, 3 takedowns plus in the fight, and end up winning the bout. But let me tell you, man, Rafael Esteban lands 6.41 takedowns per 15 minutes, Jason, 35% accuracy. Translates to 18 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. Hello, 𝗲𝗏𝘁 type of work rate. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Bunes sits there at 2.59 takedowns per 15 minutes, 25% takedown accuracy, is about 10 takedowns attempted, but he's nowhere near the caliber of wrestler that Rafael Esteban is. I'm telling you right now. The pure jiu-jitsu, I'd give the edge to Bunes, but as far as top position and good grappling and good awareness and just overall, it's Esteban. So I think the price tag's warranted. It could literally be an armbar, and next thing you know, Bunes as a plus 360 underdog ends up cashing at 6,700. But I just don't see it. The only red flags that I see surrounding Rafael Esteban on the feet, super low volume, 3.61 strikes attempted per minute, whereas Felipe Bunes 8.47. So I don't like seeing that. And then I also don't like seeing Rafael Esteban missing weight. Okay, yes, he's going to have a significant weight advantage, which is it's a cheat code. It really is a cheat code. But I don't like the fact that Esteban gasses heavy in the 3rd round. And, it may not even get to that point. But it's just something to mention. Be careful. Be careful putting him in big parlays, and that 3rd round one day is going to come bite him in the ass, but I don't know if it's this week. So give me Rafael Esteban here.
That may be one of those things you get to round 3 and you just say, screw it. Let me take a little live bet here, and maybe thinking that maybe he gasses out there. And then our opening matchup of the fight card, Rodriguez taking on Souza. Rodriguez enters this fight as a minus 250 betting favorite, priced at 8,700 DK, $17 on FanDuel. Caitlin Souza on the other side, she's a plus 200 betting underdog, priced at 7,500 on DK and $14 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, I think Souza's going to be the underdog of the week for many people. And I don't blame many people for wanting to get to Souza because, Piera Rodriguez, she's all right. She's all right, but like the significant strikes landed per minute are not of the same caliber. 3.4 significant strikes landed per minute for Rodriguez, 4.92 for Souza. So when you look, strikes attempted 7.08 for Piera Rodriguez, 8.33 for Souza. So a little nudge in the direction of Souza, but where Piera Rodriguez can really separate herself from many women within this division is initiating the wrestling. 4.06 takedowns per 15 minutes with 51% accuracy translates to 7.96 takedowns attempted. So attempting 8 takedowns, looking good in previous performances, getting disqualified for headbutting Ariana Carnelossi, dummy. But tons of top time. If there's close striking exchanges and there's no real separator in the damage department, top fighter, laying in guard, just getting control time could result in being awarded some rounds. 0.43 takedowns landed per 15 minutes for Souza with 25% accuracy is only 1.72 attempted. So clear wrestler and grappler in this fight is Piera Rodriguez. If she chooses to strike, Jason, she's going to lose. She's not going to beat Souza in just a kickboxing fight. So it's up to her to mix the takedowns. I don't think Rodriguez is the smartest fighter in the world. So there's a world out there where Souza makes this look easy as a plus 170 underdog, priced at 7,500. But I don't have any faith that Souza's not going to get taken down here. I mean, 64% takedown defense rating. Going up against a fighter that attempts nearly 8 means you're still taken down 2.86 times. And let me just tell you, that's 2 rounds. So I do worry about Piera just having top position, not really scoring the best at 8,700. I also worry about her landing a significant amount of takedowns and end up breaking the slate at 8,700. So this is a fight where I'm a little torn. I'm going to get to, I'll probably be right at the field with what the ownership is unless it's absolutely astronomical. I think everybody will want to pick Souza. I don't blame them, but I think Piera Rodriguez will be the pick for me. I told you guys I'm a little bit of a hater this week with underdogs. Too many underdogs lately, and I think that there's going to be a card full of favorites. But hey, if the underdogs keep cashing, what the hell do I know? But give me Piera Rodriguez.
Yeah, I like her in that matchup. And by the way, her to win via decision, minus 110. We're going to get into some listener questions here. Momentarily get to our straight up fight picks main event. I will go with Tatsu Tara.
Yeah, Tatsu Tara for me as well.
I'll go Rebecca. Esteban.
Ríbovitz.
Hossa.
Carol Hossa.
Dos Santos.
Yep, I'm going to be different than you here. Neil Magny for me, only underdog.
Vallejos. Nakamura. Vieira. Puliaev. Bashi. Esteban. Rodriguez.
You guys know we don't normally do that stuff, but it's just one of those weeks where I just don't. The card sucks, and I just don't think that a lot of underdogs are going to come through. But we'll have to see.
Let's get into some super chats here from Sam. Sam, always appreciate your super chats here, brother. Highest leverage at each salary tier. So when we look at the 9,000 range, when you're talking about leverage, I think it's 2 fighters you have to look at. One's Austin Bashi, and I think that's just going to be because of the price point, Pete. And the other one I would look at is someone that you talked a little bit earlier on the show and saying, hey, the price is what's concerning. The price disparity with their opponent, that being Nakamura.
Yeah, it's a great question. I love this question every time we get it. So, leverage play. I do think Bashi being the most expensive should warrant a ton of ownership. I think Esteban, because of his takedown, should warrant a ton of ownership. I think Vallejos, because of the kid looking like the next Ilia Topuria, should warrant a ton of ownership. Nakamura's in a buy low spot. Well, kind of. He's still priced as a minus 400, but I feel like the public eye is, it's a swollen eye right now. We're not in love with what he just did. So I don't blame you for saying Nakamura. I think real ones know who he is. Tyra's a main event fighter. So he's going to have ownership. Ríbovitz should have a ton of ownership. I'm going to say that I think it's Rebecca, just because he's flat 9,000. He's looked good, but I feel like there's some more attractive ones in kind of layup matchups, and this kind of has like war vibes for me. So I'm gonna say it's 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝘁, but good call with the Nakamura.
When you look in the 8,000 range, Andre is going to be the leverage spot, and maybe Dos Santos is kind of maybe a sneaky leverage spot here in the 8,000 range.
Yeah, what do we got here? We don't got a lot, huh? I mean, Jason, could it be your girl Karol Rosa? I mean, she's just a volume beast. I mean, I haven't looked at ownership. Perhaps.
Yeah. Rosa is the second most popular in this range.
Get out of here. For real?
Yep.
What are we using? Stochastic ownership?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shout out Stochastic. Oh, my God. For real, Jason? Holy smokes.
Vieira, in this range, Vieira is getting the most. By the way, 𝗵𝗵𝘁𝘁 is getting some ownership, yes.
Okay, you knew where I was going with that. Really?
Yeah.
The hell do I know, huh? Shit. Apparently nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's, obviously a lot of this stuff can change here. I mean, I think, that's why I said when I saw the ownership on Karol Rosa, I was surprised just because of, look, you think about, when you're talking about a fighter who's a decision fighter, you just never expect to see this kind of ownership. But I also think I think
make me look
but the ownership to me is what it is because of we have no fighters from 7,900 to 8,300. I think that's really a key in why ownership is what it is this week.
I'm over here shooting from the hip answering these questions. My man's looking at, so you're cheating. You were cheating when you were giving your leverage spots.
Look, I might have a spreadsheet in front of me. I might have a spreadsheet.
Cheating ass. That don't count.
In the 7,000 range, I think it's going to be 𝐃𝐲𝐬𝐬𝐵. I don't, just because of what the fantasy score upside could be even a decision win for her. I think she'll be the leverage spot there.
I don't agree with that at all. But okay. This ownership is ridiculous on everybody, huh?
I mean, no surprise that Park's getting ownership. I mean, that shouldn't be a shocker there. Yeah. In the 6,000 range, I'm surprised how much ownership Silva and Fletcher are getting.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
Yeah.
I think it's because of the no 8,000, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Sam's other super chat, he goes, who's going to have the most submission attempts to get the crown considering being in the apex?
Felipe Bunes is going to be attempting 27 submission attempts when he's on his back for 15 minutes. He may get 0, but
that's like last week. Our boy, just like, oh, come on, come to the ground with me. Come on.
Yes. Yep.
Appreciate you. Yeah, it's like, yeah, he ain't going to the ground with you, bro.
Dude, hey, did you see that? They let Martin Buday go? Or they didn't sign him?
Well, it was probably his last fight on his deal, and
he's 7-1, isn't he?
Are you really surprised?
But he's 7-1.
But the problem is, if you're not entertaining, especially at heavyweight, if you're not entertaining,
he just got punished for beating {𝗏𝗁𝘁𝗀. That's why. You weren't supposed to beat him. Get out of here.
No. I mean, I just think if you look at his fights, it's just he doesn't put on exciting fights. And would you rather, as of course, because with these wins, that pay bump keeps going up and up and up. Or do you sit there and say, hey, let's sign some heavyweight off the Contender Series and see if they could be a more exciting fighter? I mean, I understand why you could sit back and say, oh, he's 7-1 in the UFC, he shouldn't be getting cut, but yes, as a sport, this is also entertainment.
Yeah.
But I don't. Who knows what happened behind the scenes?
Yeah, true.
There are certain fighters I can tell you that I've heard from people I trust that it'll say the reason that fighter's not in the UFC because they're an a-hole to deal with.
Yeah, there's a lot of them too.
Yeah. I mean, there's just certain fighters that, just will never, get that opportunity. Let's go over to Discord to get some questions in here. Let's see here. Sam's got, as usual, best top plays. I think 𝗲𝗲𝘁 just because I think for me, my top two is 𝗲𝗲𝘁 and Vieira.
My top two are 𝗉𝗲𝘁𝘁 and 𝗲𝗲𝘁. Wow, that's such a
Yeah. Top dogs. As I look at this list, I think Neil Magny is the one that sticks out to me the most.
There we go. See, I converted you.
Well, no, I still like Dos Santos to win the matchup. I'm just saying, like, as I look at the 7,000 and 6,000 range, and I go, it's probably to me, like, if I'd probably put after Magny, I think I'd probably put Chris Duncan in that list. If Brenner can slow down the fight and not get stuck into a volume matchup, I think he's got a shot. But unfortunately, I just think he just gets brutalized on the feet from volume.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Best inside the distance fighters. You talked about Austin Bashi a little while ago. I think you got to look at Rodolfo Vieira. I would look at 𝗲𝗲𝘁 in that spot. I think Tara potentially has a late, finish in terms of that one. Anyone else you got?
I think the Tyra late sub is interesting. I mean, I don't know. That one's. We was talking about inside the distance, guys.
Yeah.
𝗉𝗲𝘁𝘁, 𝗲𝗲𝘁𝘁. No, I wouldn't do that. I think 𝗉𝗲𝘁𝘁, Rodolfo Vieira. Like, I really think, and Austin Bashi. I think I like those three together a lot.
Yeah. Next up, we got best decision odds fighters. Just give me 𝗲𝗄𝘁.
Yeah, that or Pierre Rodriguez, right?
Yeah. Nakamura, probably another one to put in that list as well. Best top punt plays. Maybe it is Nathan Fletcher as his punt play.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, if I'm looking right and I'm looking at the striking ratio, he has a better striking ratio and striking differential than Rinya Nakamura. I almost called him Ryan. But I don't like the fact that he's willing to just lay on his back.
Yeah. Favorite parlays. I would, the problem with this fight card is you have so many big favorites. I would be honest with you, man, call me crazy. If I was going to do like a 2-fighter parlay, I might put Rebecca and Karol Rosa together. Like if I was going to add a third, I'd probably throw Rodolfo Vieira in that one.
I'm big on Rodolfo Vieira this week. If he loses to Tresean Gore, stop fighting MMA.
Of course, that makes me wonder, as I don't have the PFL card on anymore, where are we at in the PFL card? Have we got to the co-main event yet?
No, they're probably on prelim too. They take fucking 12 years to play these.
Nope. First leg of the parlays hit.
Who?
Moved Khabilov won.
Oh, he arm triangled Pinedo, huh? Moved
yeah.
Khabilov.
I'm watching it right now. It looks like was that in the 5th round?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I'm watching the highlight. Yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those lines that when I saw it, I thought the value was there on Movlin, in terms of that one. Jason Pete special first fight of the night. I don't really love that. I don't love that one for DFS. That to me would just, if you play, it's a leverage play, and he goes Pete special or close to it, which you go the climb matchup at 7,400 or 7,800. And 8,400, but that's, I don't love that one either.
I don't love that matchup either, truthfully.
Yeah. See here, top captains and MVPs. I'm always looking for takedown. I wonder, could Rebecca be an interesting captain MVP spot? 𝗲𝗲𝘁𝘁, maybe Vieira,
I like 𝗉𝗲𝘁𝘁 a lot.
But I think they'll all be popular there. Takedown king and queen.
𝗲𝗲𝘁𝘁. I mean, Bunez has a 0% takedown defense rating, which that's not good.
No, no, that's not good.
Okay. And like based on how many takedowns Estevam attempts, he could land 10 to 20. But I don't think he's going to require that because Bunez is going to lay on his back. And then if it's not him, then I think it's Austin Bashi, truthfully.
Yeah. Road to the Mansion Series over under 5.5.
More.
I lean more, but Sam, I do think that is a good number there. Best takedown upside, we kind of just went over that. Ranking the 9K options, man, we have a ton of 9K options. I would probably go Tara 1, Bashi 2, Vallejos 3, Esteban 4, Rebecca 5, and Nakamura 6.
I like Bashi 1, Estevam 2, Tyra 3, Rebevitz 4, Vallejos 5, Rebecca 6. I like them all, truthfully. I'm just kind of nitpicking right now.
Yeah. Next question here. Best leverage plays, kind of just went over that a little while ago in terms of that one. So you can check that one out in terms of that. Pete, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here, man?
No, I just want to say thanks. Thanks for supporting us. If you guys can hit that like button and get us over 100 likes, thanks for joining us on a Friday night. Our schedules have been insane. If you guys want to click on that Patreon, if you want more data, that's what I'm trying to just provide is different data for you to help look at, analyze, and see like, okay, I like this. I don't like this about this fighter. You can click the link in my bio or in the bio of the show. And of course, make sure you guys join our free Discord. So there's tons of conversations and way too many opinions in the Discord, but it's always entertaining. And never a shortage of somebody in there willing to talk about MMA.
Yeah, and of course, so you look at what's coming up next week for the UFC. We got another Apex card that's going to be 𝗲𝗁𝘁 versus Hernandez. So we'll be back here next week. If you're in the score, we'll let you know when that's going to be in terms of that one. So as always, we appreciate everyone who tunes in for every episode of 𝐒ice HQ, and we will talk to you next week.